What if I told you that no matter who wins elections in Italy, no matter which party rises or falls, the real power almost never changes? What if the fate of millions of workers, entire industries, and billions of euros has quietly rested for over a century in the hands of a single family? No speeches, no crowns, no votes, just ownership, patience, and silence. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is how power actually works. For centuries, Italy has been a land of beauty, art, and passion. But behind the marble columns, behind the Renaissance paintings, and far from the noisy piazzas filled with tourists, another Italy has always existed. An Italy of boardrooms instead of balconies, of signatures instead of speeches, of families whose names are rarely spoken loudly, yet whose influence quietly shapes the nation's fate. This is not the story of politicians. Governments come and go in Italy like changing seasons. This is the story of something far more stable, far more enduring. This is the story of how power in Italy has often rested not in parliaments but in families. And among them, one family stands above the rest. To understand modern Italy, you must first understand how its economy was built. Italy was unified as a nation only in 1861. Before that, it was a collection of kingdoms, city-states, and empires. When unity arrived, the country was politically whole but economically fractured. The North industrialized rapidly, while the South remained agricultural and poor. Into this imbalance stepped powerful industrial families, filling the vacuum left by a weak central state. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, one family rose with extraordinary speed. They did not rule through crowns or armies. They ruled through factories, banks, and ownership. Their empire began with steel and machines. At the heart of their rise was industry, automobiles, to be precise. When Italy needed mobility, when it needed modern manufacturing, this family provided it. Their company did not just build cars, it built jobs, cities, and entire supply chains. By the early 1900s, tens of thousands of Italian families depended on this single industrial force for survival. With employment came loyalty. With loyalty came influence. By the time Europe was shaken by 2 world wars, this family had already woven itself into the fabric of the Italian state. Governments relied on their factories during wartime. Politicians relied on their support during peacetime. When Italy struggled, this family was often presented as the solution. But power rarely announces itself loudly. After World War II, Italy lay in ruins. The economy was shattered and the political system was fragile. This period became the perfect opportunity for economic architects to redesign the nation. Through strategic partnerships, discreet negotiations, and quiet alliances with international finance, this family expanded far beyond automobiles.
They moved into banking. They moved into insurance. They moved into media. Ownership structures became complex. Holdings were layered inside holdings. Shares were divided, cross-owned, and protected. To the public eye, everything appeared fragmented. But behind closed doors, control remained concentrated. This is how modern economic power works, not through direct ownership, but through influence. One key institution became central to this system: Italy's elite financial network. Through investment banks and private financial agreements, major decisions about mergers, bailouts, and national champions were quietly shaped long before the public ever heard about them. When companies collapsed, they were rescued. When industries struggled, they were reorganized. When rivals emerged, they were absorbed. And always, the same names appeared in the background, not on ballots, not on campaign posters, but on balance sheets. The family mastered something far more powerful than politics: continuity. Politicians faced elections, governments collapsed, scandals erupted, but the family remained. Their leadership passed smoothly from one generation to the next. Educated in the finest schools, trained in economics, law, and diplomacy, they spoke softly, avoided public drama, and understood a fundamental truth of power: visibility is weakness. Even during periods of labor unrest, when strikes paralyzed factories and protests filled the streets, the family adapted. They negotiated when necessary, compromised when profitable, and waited patiently when resistance grew strong. Time, after all, favored those who could afford to wait. As television and newspapers became central to public life, influence expanded again. Media ownership, direct or indirect, ensured that narratives remained controlled, not censored, but shaped. Stories emphasized stability, responsibility, and national interest. Economic decisions were framed as inevitable, necessary, even patriotic. Critics existed, of course. Journalists, activists, and academics questioned how so much economic power could rest in so few hands. But criticism rarely translated into structural change. The system was too deeply embedded, too interconnected with jobs, pensions, and national pride. By the late 20th century, Italy's economy had become a delicate machine. Break one gear, and the entire system trembled. Governments understood this, that understanding created dependence, and dependence creates silence. When globalization arrived, the family did not resist it, they embraced it. Factories moved abroad, partnerships formed with foreign corporations, headquarters shifted. On paper, the empire appeared to shrink. In reality, it became more flexible, more global, and harder to trace. Power no longer needed geography.
Today, many Italians may not recognize the family's name immediately. Younger generations see brands, not bloodlines. They see corporations, not dynasties. But the structure remains. Decisions affecting millions of workers, billions in capital, and the direction of entire industries still echo choices made in private rooms, far from public debate. This is not a story of villains hiding in shadows. It is a story of how modern capitalism truly works. Power concentrates where patience, planning, and inheritance meet. Democracy governs politics. Families govern economies. Italy is not unique in this. But Italy's history, its late unification, and its reliance on industrial champions made it especially vulnerable to dynastic influence. So, does one family control Italy's economy? Not in the way conspiracy theories suggest. There are no secret meetings deciding the price of bread or the outcome of elections. But influence does not need control to be effective. It needs access. It needs networks. It needs time. And above all, it needs silence. In Italy, power has always understood one thing. Those who speak the least often decide the most. And while governments rise and fall, while headlines change and scandals fade, the true architects of the economy continue their work, quietly, patiently, and far from the spotlight.